Hello everyone, my name is Sharon Beck and I have noticed that new crocheters need a really slow video with large yarn to help them learn how to crochet more easily. So I am using Bernat Plush Big Yarn, which as of January 2026 can be found at Ollie's for $5 when it usually sells new for $10. And this is a size 7 jumbo yarn. I am using a 3D printed 18mm crochet hook, and hopefully this will help you. First of all, when you start a new skein of yarn, you find the end, open it up the best you can and reach deep in there and pull out a big wad of yarn. Now I've already done this, whoops, so I already have the yarn coming from the middle of the skein, but that way you can get the end of your yarn and it unravels more easily from the inside of your skein. So first of all, with your yarn, if this was a piece of rope, this cut end would be called the bitter end. And then the rest of it would be called the working end. So first I need to show you how to make a slip knot. Hold the hold the bitter end facing down and take your working end and loop it over your bitter end. Take some time to do that right now. The bitter end should go under and your working end should go over. Now, take that working end, bring it through the loop and pull it up. Let both ends face down and pull, and you have a slip knot. It's called a slip knot because you can pull one end and make it smaller, or you can pull the loop and make it bigger. Let's see that one more time. Hold the bitter end down, loop the working end over the bitter end, take the working end, put it under and through your loop, pull the yarn through, grab both ends, and pull until you have a medium snug knot. You don't want it super tight, but you do want a good knot. Now, how to hold your crochet hook. There is usually a little dent in the middle of the crochet hook, and that is where you want to rest your thumb. It is directly below your hook, and if you put your thumb there and grab the rest in your hand, then the hook of the crochet hook will face toward you. I'm right-handed. Sorry, left-handers, you might want to watch this video in a mirror or mirror your screen. Now, then I can put my index finger here and control any loop of yarn that's on my hook. Now, take your loop of yarn and put your hook through that loop. Then you'll want to pull on the working end to tighten it, but not too much. We want to leave a fair amount of slack with a pretty decent hole so that it moves easily around your hook. Now, you have your thumb on that front flat space. Put your index finger on the yarn to keep it from flipping around your hook. Okay, and below we have the two ends of yarn. Now, take the bitter end and put it back away from yourself so you don't use it. Now take the working end of yarn. My thumb's on the front. My index finger is on top of the yarn to keep it from spinning. Take your working end and yarn over your crochet hook. You always come behind the crochet hook and loop it over. That's called yarning over. Don't yarn over from the front, that will mess you up. And if you don't have your finger on the yarn, it will flip it over and just not let you do what you need to do. So put that bitter end away from you towards the back. Put your finger on top of the loop to keep it from spinning. Yarn over from behind. And now we have two loops on our hook. The new loop going underneath the hook and the first loop there. you want to drag this new loop of yarn through the loop that was already on your hook. You can do this by grabbing the knot and grabbing the loop of yarn that came off your hook and pulling it through that loop. Now, if that was too complicated, let me undo that. We'll start again. Take your working end of yarn, not the cut end, the working end, yarn over from behind, and pull the loop under the hook through the first loop. Now, if that's not going to work, instead, you can take this loop, pick it up, and pull it over that other loop that was already on your hook. You have just chained one. Notice that this loop, if it gets too big, you'll need to make it a little small, but you don't want to tighten this first chain that you made. You want to leave that loose. Let's see this one more time. You have your slip knot. Put your hook through the slip knot. Make sure you have plenty of room. Hold your hook with the hook facing you. Put your finger on top of the loop. Yarn over from behind. Now, get that yarn under the hook so it'll catch. Take the first loop that was already on the hook, lift it over that second loop and off of your hook. Make sure that you leave it fairly loose, that you don't tighten that first chain because we want some room there. Make sure the loop around your hook is also fairly loose. Now you're ready to chain again. Yarn over from behind and either draw this loop through using your hook, which might be a little difficult right now, so you'll probably just want to take this loop of yarn and pull it up and over and off of the hook. Keep going until you have a nice chain of, well, chains. So just keep yarning over and either pulling your yarn through or pulling the loop off, leaving some slack. If you leave too much slack, you'll have kind of an ugly chain. It won't be very consistent. If you do have a chain that's not very consistent and doesn't look good, just take everything off your hook, pull gently on the working end of yarn until that one loop comes out. Then you can put your hook back in, adjust the slack, and keep going. Now, if you wanted to see what I was doing about pulling the loop through instead of lifting the loop over, let's take a closer look at that. So we have the right amount of slack on the loop that is on your hook. Yarn over from behind and let this yarn catch under that hook. Now, in order to pull it through, you'll need to grab onto the chain that you've already done. Maybe grab a little bit onto this working yarn here as well. You're going to grab this loop and pull it through the loop that's already on your hook. Notice when I do that, I turn my hook downward so it catches that yarn better and so it can fit nicely through that loop on my hook. It fits better when I have the hook turned downwards. So here we are. Yarn over, grab onto your work so you can pull it, turn your hook down to catch that loop of yarn, pull it through the first hook, then turn your hook right side up so you don't lose your yarn. Then adjust your yarn so it's the right amount of slack, yarn over from behind, grab onto your work to help you pull this loop open at the bottom here. Grab that top loop of yarn, pull it through the loop that was already on your hook. So notice how, when I'm doing this, I turn my hook, I pull it through, and I turn it back up. So that is kind of the motion I'll make while I'm crocheting. So here it is a little faster. Notice I always pull my loop of yarn back to the wide portion of the hook. I don't leave it down here underneath the hook because it's very narrow and that will make my chains too tight. So I move it back here to the wider portion of my hook, and that way it always makes the loops big enough. So keep practicing your chain until you have a decent length chain and you feel pretty confident, and you're getting more consistent with your loops. See, right here is pretty consistent, and then I got a little bit big of a chain right here. That's okay. And then I got a little more consistent again. So another thing you'll want to notice, once you have a chain made, the top of the chain looks like a braid. You can see each little V shape. Let's see, there's a V shape, there's a V shape on the top of your braid. If you turn the braid over to the back, it looks like you have a little bump on the center of each. Here, 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 here. In the center of each chain, you have a little bump. Let's try to show that again. Here, 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 here. And so each of those bumps is in the center of a chain. Once again, on the front or the top, you have a V shape making each chain. Once you have a long enough chain, I made mine about a foot long, maybe a foot and a half. Now we're ready to go backwards and crochet back along this chain and create our first true row. So, first of all, you need to arrange your yarn so it is the direction you need to work with. This working end of the yarn needs to go back behind your work to get out of your way. Right now, it doesn't really matter if it goes over the top or if you put it underneath your work if that's easier. Both ways are fine. I'm going to put it over the top right now. And now we need to find the second chain from the hook. The loop of yarn around your hook does not count. Then here is a V shape, that is the first chain, and here is the second chain from the end of my hook. Don't count the loop around your hook. Do count. This is the first chain, this is the second chain. On the back of the second chain, flip it over, and you'll find a bump of yarn on the back. Here it is. There's the bump of yarn on back. Here's another bump of yarn, that was the first chain, and here's the second. So, notice this working end is thrown behind and out of our way. We take the hook and turn it kind of sideways, and we're going to put the hook through this bump right here. So, bring the hook down, put it from underneath through that bump or that loop. So now we have 2 loops of yarn on your hook. Don't worry, I'll show this again. Now, take your yarn, your working end, and yarn over from behind. Well, it's really kind of from diagonally because it wasn't, I mean, you forced it to be behind, but it's not really behind. And that's okay. Yarn over kind of diagonally and let it catch underneath the hook right here. Now, pull it through 1 loop. You still have 2 loops of yarn on your hook. Push both loops a little closer. Now, if this loop got kind of big, you need to tighten it up so that there's not a whole lot of slack. Then, yarn over from behind 1 more time and pull this loop through both loops that were already on your hook. So, or lift over 1, 2 loops and just drop them off behind. You have now created your first single crochet. Yes, right now it looks like a messy rat's nest. There's not a lot of shape and definition to it. But if you'll look at the loop of yarn that goes around your hook, as it comes off the hook, it goes under 2 loops of yarn and keeps going along the chain. That's good. You've done it right if you have the loop coming off your hook, going under 2 loops of yarn and coming out. That is correct. Now, I told you I'd show you this one more time. So let's see this again. The good news about crochet is it's very easy to take apart. So you just take your hook out of the work, pull gently on the working end until your loop comes apart. Keep pulling until you're back to a regular old chain, and there we are. Put your hook back through that loop and you're ready to continue. So here is a single crochet one more time from the beginning. Make sure this loop has a little bit of slack but not too much. Put your working end over the top and behind your work and find the second chain from your hook. Here's your hook. This doesn't count. There's the first chain. There's the second chain. Go to the back of the chain. That loop on the back is what we want. So here we are. Here's the working end. We don't want the first loop. We want the second loop from the hook. All right, throw this working end out of the way. Push the loop of yarn down on your hook. Make sure it's not too tight or too loose. And take your hook, put it down, and go underneath through the second chain from the hook. Here it is one more time. Go down, put it through the loop from underneath. You now have 2 loops of yarn on your hook. Take your working end, yarn over from behind as best you can. You kind of have to force it to be from behind. Put it underneath the loop of your hook and pull through the first loop. Now, you'll need to either loosen it or tighten it to make it just the right amount of slack. And that's how this looks. Now, yarn over from behind and pull through both loops that were already on your chain. So take your first, pull it over, second, over and off. And now you have a single crochet. Now, if this loop is getting too big, you'll need to tighten it up again. And you'll want to turn it so this working yarn goes behind and that this chain runs off to the side from your hook. Now, to find the next place where you crochet, you'll notice that the loop that goes around the hook comes through these 2 loops of yarn and out. There is a bump of yarn underneath that also comes through those 2 loops. You have already crocheted into that loop. See how one of these pieces of yarn goes through that loop? You don't want to crochet there. Not there. You find the yarn, goes through the 2 loops. There's the bump. You've already crocheted through it. Go to the next bump on your yarn. That's the one you want to use. When you have found the next loop, do the same thing again. Take your hook, bring it over, and put it from underneath, put it through that loop. You have 2 loops of yarn on your hook. Take your working end, yarn over from behind. Well, it's kind of diagonal. Notice you just have a big old knot. It's okay. Yarn over. You might have to force it to go underneath the hook and pull through 1 loop. Now, if you pull through too much, tighten that up. Don't have as much slack. Now, yarn over from behind again and pull through 2 loops. And if you're having trouble pulling through, you can just take each loop and lift it over and off. All right, you now have 2 single crochets. So the knot at the beginning is looking bigger, the big rat's nest. And let's kind of get a look at this here. So at the top of your work, you have the loop that's going around your hook. That doesn't count. And it goes into this little V-shaped braid right here. That's your second single crochet that you just made. And back here was your first single crochet that you just made. And notice each of these kind of goes down and has some thickness going down to the chain below. All right, now we're ready for our next single crochet. Adjust the tension of that loop around your hook. Find where that working yarn goes through the 2 loops. That second loop away goes through this loop. We do not want to use this loop. We want this one right here. Okay, there it is. So there is my work. I have the 2 loops it goes through and this loop right here. I don't want that one. Instead, I want this loop right here. Okay, so grab that loop, put your yarn through that loop from underneath. You have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over from behind. Pull through 1 loop. Adjust everything. If this 1 loop is getting too big, tighten it up. Pull everything onto the fat part of your hook so that you have the right tension and you can make it mostly tight but not completely. Yarn over from behind, pull through 2. Now instead of lifting up and over, I'm going to show you pulling through. I have to grab this big old knot right here, plus kind of grab my working end to give it a little bit of tension. And yank down my work a little bit right here. Grab this loop, turn my hook upside down, pull it through that loop and through this loop. Sometimes if I'm lucky, I'm able to pull through both loops at once. Sometimes I have to go through 1 loop at a time. It's all good. So there's my 3rd single crochet with the V shape on top right here. 3rd, 2nd, 1st single crochet. Keep going. Adjust the tension. Find your next bump after your single crochet. So here's the single crochet. Notice I kind of flatten it and lay it down. There's where it comes out. There's where we already crocheted through it. Go to the next part of your chain and there is the next bump. Nope, there's the next bump right here. Okay, so here it is. Going through these 2 loops through here. Not this one, we've already gone through this one. This is the one we want, this loop right here. There it is from the side, this loop right here. So place your hook through the loop from below. Make sure your working yarn is behind. Yarn over, kind of diagonally. Pull through 1 loop. You now have 2 loops on your hook. Push them down to the fat part of the hook, but also make sure your tension is tight enough. Yarn over and pull through 2. 1, 2. Keep doing that. So find your next loop. Notice this yarn goes through this loop. We don't want this one. We want this one right here. Put your hook through, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over again, pull through 2. Keep going with your single crochets until you make it all the way to the end of your chain. You can pause the video while you keep doing that. When you get to the end of your chain, how do you know where to stop? Well, if you'll notice, I have a bump here and a bump here on the back of my chain before I get to the knot, the slip knot with the bitter end. So I can definitely chain in this little bump right here. So not chain, single crochet. So let's do that. Now, when I get to the knot, I can make 1 more. If I kind of twist this around, you can see there's 1 more bump. If you go to the other side, you can see there's 1 more braid. And on the back of that braid, there's 1 little bump of yarn that you can put your hook through. So put your hook through that last bump of yarn, yarn over, pull through one, yarn over, pull through two. So when you're done, you should really be in the last loop that goes directly to that knot. And if you will take your crochet and kind of stretch it out and straighten it out, you'll notice that you now have some thickness to that chain. There on the bottom is the original chain, there's the side, and there's your new braid or chain on the top. And that is, you have done one row of single crochets. And now you're ready to turn your work. When you turn your work, you have to chain one, because otherwise it'll smash together at the end and you won't get any height on the edge. So to chain one, remember you have one loop on your hook. Make sure it has the right amount, just a little bit of slack, but not too much. Take your working end and yarn over from behind and pull through one loop. Or if you prefer, yarn over from behind and pull one loop over and drop it off. Now, we need to turn our work. So we can go back the other way and make row two. The chain didn't really count as a row. And so I like to turn my work so that the chain comes towards me and spins around back to the left. However, you can also turn the chain behind and back to your left. It doesn't matter, but it's best to do it the same way each time. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to turn the chain toward me and to the left. Now I have a twisted loop of yarn here, that's okay. Make sure your working end of your yarn is behind and leading back away from your work and away from you. And this bitter end, just make sure it's away from you so it doesn't get in your way as you continue to work. By the way, if the yarn is too tight into the skein of yarn, pull out a whole bunch of extra yarn so that you have slack to work with. Now, tighten that first loop so it has just enough to work with, and we need to find the first single crochet from the hook. So the loop around the hook doesn't count. Here was the chain one. This first V is a chain one. Down here, this is the first single crochet. So the loop around your hook, here's your chain one. The next V or braid is where you want to put your hook. You'll want the hook to go under both loops of the V. So turn your hook down, skip that chain one, go underneath and go through both loops of that first single crochet. Now, your yarn should be back here. First of all, we need to get this loop a little tighter because that's getting kind of loose. So pull up a little bit of slack. Not too much, but just enough to make it good. This will be a little tight here, and that's okay. Take your working end of yarn, yarn over sideways, yarn over from sort of behind, then pull through both loops of your single crochet. This counts as pulling through one. So yarn over, pull through both loops, just kind of pull it through. You might have to yank it over. You still have two loops of yarn on your hook. Yarn over from behind, pull through two again. 1, 2. You have just made another single crochet. You can see how the end is getting a little bigger and taller, whereas the rest of it's still kind of short. All right, come over to the top of your work. See this loop, and where it goes through the two loops, comes out the bottom. You've already crocheted there. come to the first V after that. That's where you're putting your loop. Come around to the front. Here we are again. Here's the loop of yarn around, 2 loops here. There's that work. You've already crocheted here. There's the first V shape. Put your hook down through both layers of the V. So now we have 3 loops of yarn on your hook. Yarn over, kind of from behind, mostly just diagonally. You might have to force it under the loop. Pull through 2 loops. Notice how I turn the crochet hook so that the hook points downwards, so it fits better through this loop. And I kind of yank on this to make a hole to pull the yarn through. Okay, now if that loop is too big, tighten it up so that you have both loops about the same amount of slack. Yarn over one more time, pull through both loops, or just take each loop and pull it over and off. So now we have on the top, we have the loop going around the hook. We have a single crochet here and a single crochet here, and this little loop right here is kind of your stopper loop. That was that single crochet you did when you turned. Okay, let's do this again. Look on top of your work, find the first V coming out, not the V that we've already crocheted in. See how this yarn comes off the top and through the 2 loops? Not there, you've already crocheted there. After that, here it is. Put your hook through 2 loops. Remember, this loop tends to get loose, so use your working end and tighten it up. Okay, yarn over from behind, okay, diagonally, whatever. Pull through 2 loops. Adjust your tension. Push all your work towards the fat part of your hook. Yarn over from behind, pull through 2 loops, 1, 2. All right, keep going with your single crochets until you make it all the way to the other end. Now, what if your yarn gets put over the top and you come around back? Let's see what happens. So I did not keep my yarn to the back and out of the way. Instead, I let it get in front of my work. Now I take my hook and I put it through that next V, and I yarn over from behind. I pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and now I have this extra stitch that went over the front of my yarn. If that happens, you forgot to put your working end behind your work, and the way to fix it, you pull your hook out, you pull the working end, and you pull slowly and gently, and keep pulling until you have completely taken out the last stitch, and you have 1 loop of yarn sticking up. Now you're ready to go back to your work. Take your hook, put it through that loop, adjust the tension. Now remember, get this behind your work. Put your hook through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Keep going, and you might want to pause this video as you continue to crochet. Now, how do you know where to stop when you get to the end of your first row of your second row of single crochet? Well, when you come to the end, you should have, if you look on the top here, there is a V shape, there is a V shape, and this last might look like a V shape, kind of looks like a lump, goes over the edge. You don't want to crochet here. This is your stopper. So this one is over a definite amount of a single crochet. So this is a single, and then you can put a single here. So do your last 2 single crochets, and finally the very end one. And If you'll straighten out your work and pull it, you can see that now it's twice as tall because you now have 2 rows of single crochet. Now we're ready to turn your work. Remember, make sure you have the right amount of slack and you want to chain 1. So yarn over from behind, pull through. Or if you prefer, yarn over from behind and pull through 1 loop. Okay, now we're going to turn our work. Like I said, I prefer to take the work and pull it towards my body and move it to my left side. Now, find the top of your crochet with all those lovely braids. Remember, the loop around your hook doesn't count. The first V is a chain 1. Doesn't really look like it, but it's a chain 1. The second V is your true single crochet. See how kind of looks like I have, this is my chain 1 right here, and this is my first true single crochet right here. So adjust the tension, put your hook through both parts of the V. Notice we have that chain 1 right here. Yarn over from behind, pull through 2, yarn over from behind, pull through 2. That was our first single crochet. Now, don't do another single crochet in the same loop. Go to the next V or braid. That's where you'll do your next crochet. See, it looks like you have enough room to put it here, but you've already crocheted there. So come to the next V where you need to crochet. Put your hook through, yarn over, pull through both, yarn over, pull through 2. Keep going all the way across until you get to the end of your next row. When you get to the end of your 4th row, once again, how do you know when to stop? So if you look at the top of your work, here's a V, here's a V, and here is your stopper loop. Don't crochet in that loop. So put a single crochet in each of these. Now let's say you're at the end of your work and you want to end off and finish this right here. Let's say this is all you want to do, or let's say you've made a whole scarf or blanket or whatever, and you need to end off your work. How do you do that? Well, you chain 1. So I finished my last single crochet. I take a yarn over from behind and I pull through 1. Now, that loop that we just made, make it really big. Pull your hook so that you have a big old loop of yarn coming off of your hook, sticking out of that last chain 1. You'll want to cut your yarn at the center of that long loop. Then you just take the working end of your yarn and pull it out, and that will take the working end out and leave 1 cut strand of yarn. And then you just pull that, pull that cut strand tight. It will tighten that knot, and you'll just have that 1 piece of yarn hanging out. I'm trying to save my yarn and not cut it, and so that's why I'm not doing this. So here it is one more time. You have finished your final single crochet, chain 1, yarn over, pull up 1 loop. Then pull that loop out long so that you have about at least 6 inches of yarn, and then cut your yarn right here where the hook goes through the end of it. Then come back over to your working yarn and pull that out. Don't worry, you're not going to unravel anything. And that will leave 1 little piece of yarn sticking out here. And you just pull that really tight. Of course, mine's not working right because I didn't actually cut it, but you pull that piece tight, it will tighten up this knot right here, And then you take the pieces and you just weave them, go on the back and weave them through some of the other pieces so that you hide that string. You'll do the same with the beginning string that you had when you started your work. You'll either go on the front or on the back, whichever one seems easiest, and you'll just work this yarn, kind of tuck it underneath some of your old stitches. Now, yes, you can do this by hand because this is such big yarn, but when you're doing real crochet with small yarn, okay, yes, this is real, but when you're crocheting with much smaller yarn, you'll need to use your hook. You'll need to use a much smaller hook. You put it through, you grab that yarn, and you pull it through the loop. So I'll put my hook through the loops that I want to hide that yarn under. I grab the yarn end, I pull it through those 2 loops. Notice I have to kind of turn it to get it to go through. And I keep going until I've worked this little bitter end underneath all the loops so it's hidden and I can't really see it. And then I can just cut off any little bit that's still underneath. And that is how you end off your work. Now, you might be mad at me, but now, if you haven't cut your yarn, we are going to pull all of this out, which is called frogging your yarn. Frogging your work, you just take it all back out, and we are going to use the same yarn, and we are going to crochet an amigurumi mouse. So, go right ahead, pull that last piece, pull it through, and just pull and watch your yarn unravel. It's kind of satisfying and kind of dreadful at the same time. But that's the cool thing about crochet, is that it's really easy to pull out your work if you make any sort of mistake. And believe me, I've made plenty and still do to this day. Now notice when I get to the end here where I wove my end through the work, it's a little harder to get back out, so I might have to untangle that part, and then I can keep going. And then finally I pull out that last chain, and I even pull out the slip knot. And now I'm ready to use the yarn again. Go to my next video and you can learn how to crochet an amigurumi mouse. See you soon!